Today, we are going to discuss double fertilization in angiosperm. In angiosperm, the fertilization takes place twice. Once, a male nucleus with the egg nucleus and the other male nucleus with the secondary or definitive or fused polar nuclei. Let's see how double fertilization occurs in an angiosperm. This is the LS of a flower. The pistil comprises of stigma, style and ovary, and stamen as anther and filament. These two floral holes, that is androecium and gynoecium, takes part in fertilization process. Hence, these are essential holes, you all know. Let's see how this fertilization occurs. In the pollen basket of the anther contains pollen grain. Initially, pollen grain has a single nuclei which divides into two. First one is the vegetative and the second one is the generative nucleus. So, generative nucleus and the vegetative nucleus. Now, these pollen grains are transferred from anther to the stigma. As the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma, what happens? You see, as it is transferred from anther to the stigma, the exine bursts and the intine protrudes to form the pollen. The generative nucleus and the vegetative nucleus enter in the pollen tube. The vegetative nucleus forms the tube nucleus. The vegetative nucleus, on entering the pollen tube, forms the tube nucleus, and the generative nucleus also enters in the pollen tube. So, in this way, the pollen tube is formed, which goes on. It starts moving through the style, the tube nucleus and the generative nucleus. By this time, the generative nucleus divides into two male gametes, and the tube nucleus is in front of the pollen tube. It may enter through the micropyle. If it enters through the micropyle, it is known as porogamy. If it enters through the chalaza, it is known as chalazogamy. If it enters through the integument, it is known as mesogamy. As it enters and touches the ovule, the pollen tube bursts. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg nucleus and the other male gamete fuses with the definitive or secondary nucleus. Thus, fertilization takes place twice and is known as double fertilization. Now, you see, this is the definitive nucleus or secondary nucleus. Since it is the fused polar nuclei where In this fused polar nuclei, each cell is haploid. So altogether, this fused polar nuclei is a diploid cell. This is diploid in nature, n plus n equal to 2n. So when this secondary nucleus or the definitive nucleus containing diploid number or 2n number of chromosome fuses with the male nucleus containing haploid number of chromosome, forming triploid endosperm nucleus. It is known as triple fusion. So I think double fertilization and triple fusion is clear to you.